Hope we update you tomorrow.
And if everybody else has not had a chance to turn their phones to do not disturb or silent, now would be the time to do it before the meeting starts. All right, I'm showing 6 o'clock. We will call to order the City Council Business Meeting of November 12th, 2024. If you would all start by joining me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could I get a roll call, please?
Westwood?
Here.
Conley? Daniel? Here. Keith? Miller?
Here.
Ronning? Yes. Tupin?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'd just like to publicly excuse Councilmember Conley. She is not feeling well and was kind and courteous enough to stay home rather than share, and we appreciate that. I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda of November 12th, 2024.
I will second.
All right, I have a motion from Councilmember Ronning. And a second from, now I've thrown myself because I don't have my cheat sheet. A second from Councilmember.
Daniel.
Pardon?
Daniel.
Yeah, there. Daniel. I'm gonna write it down. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes. We already did the agenda. So, I'm sorry, let's do a vote. Could we vote? Let's go ahead and do a vote.
Daniel?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronning?
Yes.
Tupin?
Yes.
All right, I will entertain a motion. I'm doing this on the back of the wrong piece of paper. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes of October 22nd.
I move to adopt the minutes of October 22nd, 2024.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Councilmember Ronning, and second by Councilmember Daniels. Dyslexia has its problems, I'm just saying. Any discussion?
I have one comment. That was really fast. Thank you for getting those minutes done so quickly. That's all I wanted to say.
I'm gonna do something so I don't get my, oh no, that is the new and improved, okay. All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Let's go to a vote.
Daniel?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronning? Yes. Tupin?
Yes.
All right, I'll entertain a motion regarding warrants payable.
I move to approve warrants payable in the amount of $683,956.16.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Councilmember Ronning, a second from Councilmember Miller. Discussion?
You didn't even look up, did it?
I looked down.
There were a couple of large checks in here, including to Great West, Engineering, and the other one, Great West Engineering was $92,000, and then we also paid, sorry.
Must have store.
Yeah, for reasons, was that for, oh, no, the FEMA money.
It was FEMA.
Yeah.
Street repair.
For the street repairs was over $300,000, so that will be more of a pass-through because I believe FEMA funds will be paying for that, not city. Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Thank you for signing those, guys.
Yeah, thank you for getting that done, particularly with your long meeting today that I know was a longer work session. Can we do a vote, please?
Daniel?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronnie? Yes. Tupin?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. All right, mayor's reports.
First off, as I look around, I want to say congratulations to the council members who will be returning. We have two. We'll say goodbye to you later, but we're acknowledging those that are coming back in. And also, those who will be joining us in the new year. For those of you who are starting a new term, remember that when we were doing the homework last year, we found that as soon as you have been notified of the official canvass result, it is appropriate to reach out and be sworn in. The judge has said, just reach out to him, directly if you'd like. If you'd like to do, and you can schedule it quietly or whoever you'd like to invite, or if you'd like to do the more, traditional pomp and circumstance that we've done before, I'm happy to do that as well. But we have learned that within 10 days of being notified via the Kansas report, the little certificate they send you, that's the appropriate time to get sworn in. That doesn't mean you're official yet unless you're already here, but that's for the next term. So anyway, just wanted to share that with folks. All right,
Did you, notify, Anne Reed of that, or do you want me to?
no, we have had that conversation with Anne Ruth, but thank you. And you are welcome to reach out to her and share and anything, but, yeah, we have already had that conversation. And she had expressed that she just wanted to, she was wondering what the rules were and the timelines, because she wanted to do the quiet, sneak in, get it done, and then get to work business approach, so that's all right. All right, mayor's report. So Public Works, first off, the stormwater status. We've received word, we got lucky with the weather. I'd rather be lucky than good any day. But reportedly, they finished the checklist. Now, I have been made aware that there are still some sidewalks that were pulled up during that process that may not be on that list because they may have had to do with water mains and leaks that we found along the way as well. So I'm aware of some of those that are out, but the report is that they have completed all of the scheduled work other than basically going through and picking up the candlesticks and the stuff that's kind of down over the weekend when they poured the last concrete. So it's just pick up, clean up, and then validation from our Public Works Director, who's going to basically go through, review the checklist, make sure they've hit everything, and basically accept the work. But other than that, we got it done. So, yeah, that was kind of a nice thing, and the importance of that will come up a little bit later as well. The other thing, kind of from the Public Works standpoint, two things. We completed our lead pipe inventory that you all recall. There was a letter that went out at the first of the year. However, the filing system, there were several things in the way they initially queried the information that were kind of like disqualifying, or like if your house was built after 1980 or whatever year it is, they made it illegal to start using lead pipes anymore, then you didn't need to fill in this additional information. However, when it all got entered into the spreadsheet, it gives it a funky classification. So there's probably about 1,000 letters of follow-up letters that are going to be going out. It's not something to be concerned of. The letters will explain. I haven't seen the final draft of that yet. We're looking to see it soon, and we'll also put that information out in the paper, but it's basically just some additional requests, help us with the following information. So if your constituents reach out, pardon?
That's like half.
It is. It's a lot more than, and it's different than when it was a year ago. So the guy we have doing our lead pipe inventory has already done this for a different town.
Okay.
And he's like, and they changed it. So it's the federal government, we're used to that. So just a heads up, if you hear from your constituents, and Public Works is happy to help to get those things resolved and taken care of. It's just a reiterative process, and we knew that when we started. We just didn't know we were going to have half on our next iteration. Kind of along that line of Public Works also, the tax statements are going out. I apologize if I mentioned this last time, but it's worth mentioning again. We did put it into the paper as well. In July of this year, trash started to appear on the utility bills. Lots of reasons that was practical, and council moved forward with doing that. At the time, what we communicate to everybody is when you get your taxes in November, you are going to see taxes for one half of the year, which is actually from January to June. And so that may be confusing to people because they actually say, I'm seeing it on my utility bill, why am I also seeing it on my taxes? What I did not realize at the time, and I now do, is that whenever you get taxes, they always divide them equally throughout the year. So the January to June is not just on your November and done, but we're only collecting half as much, but they still divided it. So it'll be on two statements. So if you get calls on that, we do have that information on the city website as well, and we shared that with the newspapers. I believe they published that. I haven't gone through and read and verified that. But it's an as expected. They're not paying for it twice. It is a little bit different than I know what my understanding was. So I know as I communicated to people, I was slightly off in how we see it. But they're still not double paying, and it's still just getting caught up. There was a question from council. Is that going to negatively impact us? Like last year when we had the 40,000 that we basically spent before we used it, and my best answer is only half as much. So there may still be a little bit of an impact, but this will be our last year on that. Anything from the Public Works arena before I move on from that?
I think you covered most of the things from Public Works
Okay.
that we wanted to talk about.
Now I'm going to go to land use. I was just saying
Did
Public
you
Works.
want to bring up,
Oh, good.
Solar, application submitted?
I didn't. Council approved submitting it, and it has been submitted. We have no other additional information on that.
Okay.
Did you have something else you wanted to?
you're moving into land use, sound good.
Yeah, okay. Is that what you were thinking? So, okay. So land use, and this is actually where most of the updates are. So we already, the first thing is, the Rocky Fork Inn tear down. We are still working with, Tetra Tech, who is handling the RF, and I think these are Ps for tear down. There's three elements there. There's the demolition, there's the remediation, which is the big word for asbestos, and then there's the bank rehabilitation, which is an engineering project and of $100,000 such of bringing in riprap to put along the hills and stuff. Where we thought that, where we literally had backhoes unloading and ready to go in, the Fed said, wait until we give you an okay on the money. It turns out that what happens is, there's an amendment to the original. Once we have real dollar values, we make an amendment process that they sign off on, and they are working on it. We're getting the real numbers, from that, working on an amendment to our original contract or application with them, because we've mentioned earlier that we knew the real numbers weren't valid. They want that all before they want it done in past tense for funding before you put the first shovel in the dirt. So the likelihood is we'll have everything in place, but the likelihood is it'll probably be the first doable day when spring hits before that building goes down. It does look like the funding is still available. It's all still going to be done at the 75-25, so no cost to the residents from local tax dollars.
But no timeline yet?
No, we're working on getting it all done. But it's the federal, and it's the federal through DEQ, and it took 6 to 8 months to get it done before, but I don't anticipate this is gonna take 6 months. I do anticipate we will continue to bug them throughout the winter. But the goal is to have it done, so as soon as there's a doable day, it can go and be done. The realistic expectation is it's probably gonna be better weather before they do it. It's not fun to go in and do asbestos remediation and mud and
Is there a lot of
cold.
asbestos there, or you don't know yet?
I don't know. They've done that. That was the part they were ready to go in and do, so they know what's there.
Okay.
I have not seen the final bids on the demolition or the RFQ. In fact, there will probably be, there may be a council action that's required to, depending on the estimate of the bank reclamation, there may be a council action that we need to do to send it out for an RFP. So once we have our real 3 final numbers that we can put into our amendment, then the feds approve it. And then they say, now you can start. So I'm assuming that will work at the speed of bureaucracy, and we've all seen that over the last year. And also in the land use, kind of discussions, we have actually had formal requests from property owners both north and south of town to start an annexation process. So, those are independent of the conversations. We've talked about the places that we already own the sewer for, Remington Ranch and Woodlands. So that's independent of that. Just as a way of information, there's a formal process that comes into that. That's basically a resolution of intent to annex. And what happens is we're working with our planner who puts together the requirements that we have. And generally what those are is you have to first, those developers have to demonstrate to the city, they do the engineering studies that say you have the water capacity, you have the sewer capacity, they have to demonstrate that we have the capacity to do that, so that's on them. The reason I raise that is just kind of part of our job is looking in the future 20 years. And so when you look at if we annex north, if we annex south, there's another request that's not quite an annexation request because they've already annexed from the Spires. When they came in, what they were approved for was 400 lots. And just to back up a little bit, if I didn't say this already, once you do those conditions in that intent to annex, if they meet all of those conditions, the city is legally bound then to annex it. You can't change your mind. So you can't say, go spend $5 million and do an engineering study and tell us what our capacity is, and then we're going to tell you no. So that's something to take very seriously when we get those. There'll be conversations. I imagine that'll probably make it to planning as well, but ultimately it'll be an action by council. But if you look at north, south, and the Spires coming in, we're basically making the Spires do the same thing to expand beyond 400. So when we approved them, it was for 400 connections. Now they've come in and asked for 600, and there's been a little bit of a discussion, is that 600 more on top of the 200 they have, which means 800 instead of 400, or is it taking the original estimate from 400 to 600? And I think that's the latest, but there's some confusion just in going back and forth. But the short version is, it was my decision in talking with our planners that process should basically be the same thing as annexing. You're basically asking the city to make a commitment to provide the following resources, and so we want to look at our capacity. Someday, we have added length because of the stormwater project. We get to dump 1 million gallons of water into Rock Creek every day. We have to treat it first. Next month, in our December meeting, I've asked Mike to prepare, we're going to actually see some numbers of what we've accomplished this year with the stormwater, because we are now dumping less in because we're treating sewer rather than all surface water for a lot of town. And also, kind of an unexpected and corresponding benefit is we have dropped significantly the amount of water that we are taking out of the water tanks right now. So as they've gone through and been digging in and finding leaks under the ground, they're finding leaks that have been there for years and decades that are significant leaks that we're shutting down. And so our water usage, even though we're building, our water usage out of our water source has actually gone down. So we'll have some numbers the 1st of December on that.
Mayor, can I ask one question?
Please.
You said the Woodlands was one, and that's to the north?
No. So the Woodlands and Remington Ranch are places where we already provide sewer, and they've already signed agreements. So if we were to take them in, that's just the council makes the decision to do that.
Yeah.
It's the land in between Current Town and the Woodlands that is looking to do an annexation. And then the land to the south.
On the west side?
On the north side.
No,
So-
on the west side of the creek or the east side of the creek?
East side of, between the creek and the
212.
highway, 212.
Okay, that's the west
Okay.
side of the creek.
Where's the
West of the
Woodlands?
creek, east.
Woodlands is 2 Mile Bridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Across the street.
So that's, a lot of people think that is city limits, but it's not.
So the hospital is the end of the city limits, but it's on the west side
Right.
of 212.
The
So
city
this
goes
be
like this.
The east side of 212 to the creek.
Thank you.
Correct. It is worth mentioning that the current landowner on that, I think it's fair to call out. I'm sure that his intention is to get the best market value out of that land, and he believes it has more value if it's part of the city. And not, so he's looking to demonstrate that the potential exists for it to be annexed. That's fine and dandy for him, but our responsibility is not to make sure he gets top dollar for his land. Our responsibility is the big picture of Red Lodge and the city. Having said that, that seems like the most logical spot that the city is going to expand as growth occurs, because we've only got land, we're in a little trough here, and we've got limited land available that's directly attached. So, I think while it's okay to acknowledge their motivation, our mission is to evaluate it from a city standpoint and the taxpayers of Red Lodge.
So in south of town then, where is that located at?
Yeah.
Just immediately south, there's several 20-acre parcels down there. And they are looking to move forward and develop that, and they're gonna do the first and then kind of extend. So their request to annex will be for the whole, but they may do
Like
it
right
in
at
chunks.
the base of Matisse going up?
Yeah.
On the right-hand side there?
and 308.
Okay.
I know, I guess I can say the Wolf property, for lack of a better description, but that's.
A lot of
that-
property.
Yeah,
So
but
much
there's a lot of land down there.
Yeah.
So those are, and in fairness, those are absolutely expected conversations, which is why we took on the stormwater project when we did.
Yeah, before we did that, it was kind of a hard no.
Yeah, we did,
From our public works director, not from council, but.
no, but there's a certain
There
point
wasn't
that
capacity.
you've gotta be able to handle the capacity, or you hang up the no vacancy sign. And while there are those that, to be fair, certainly have residents that would like that answer, there are other things that we also look at as far as how do we increase our revenues to help pay for public safety and the services that the city provides. And we've talked about that, only 1/2 the rate of inflation over the last 3 years, plus new development. So new development plays an important part for us. All right, pardon?
Nothing.
Okay, sorry.
My comments and my.
I missed it, but yeah, if you're gonna talk at the table, out loud voices. All right, I handed out to everybody a letter of correspondence that'll be in the packet. Did not make it here for the land use planning meeting, but it was a letter, relating to the RV, parks within the city. So that's shared with everybody, and it'll also be in the packet next week. And we did talk about in the land use meeting, that there are people with differing opinions on whether RV parks do or do not belong in the city. And so, I just relayed that along, and you all have a copy of that now. Airport. A fairly significant update, in the airport that we got Friday. So we had put in several years ago, a master plan, and the FAA had paid for that, a significant chunk of money to the tune of a couple $100,000 to go in and do that master plan. That master plan has not yet been completed. There's been a draft copy that has been submitted, and they've been working with. But the short version is, the Fed came back, even though it's not finalized and done, and indicated that the same conversation that they had 20 years ago, that they are not interested in putting the existing Red Lodge Airport into the airport improvement plans. That doesn't mean the airport gets shut down. It just means the federal money, which was one of the things that we were looking for to finalize, at this point, they're saying no. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's dead. I don't know if it's dead or mostly dead, but I think for practical intents and purposes of it, we are looking as it being dead. Having said that, we still need to accept the master plan. So council will accept it. And that, or our plan B is we write back a check for a couple $100,000 that they've invested in doing the master plan. And then, in that same thing, we were originally gonna be talking about the MOU wording tonight, and we pulled it Friday as we were putting it out. Basically, what we wanted to do is make sure that the wording we had in place didn't tie the airport board to doing the developments that the money wasn't gonna be available to do. So we basically need to make sure that it says, if you get the federal money, then you're gonna follow all the rules that the Fed says you have to do. Not not that we're gonna do everything that we would do if we have the Fed money, even though we don't have the Fed money. So that's why that was pulled. So, Council President Ronning has said she'll have that ready at the next meeting, and you guys can hammer it out and beat, no, I'm just kidding. So, given timing, I just wanted to see if she was still awake. So we will work on getting both of those things done. There's basically two things. There's the MOU, and there is the acceptance of the master plan. There is also independently kind of going on at the same time. I think we mentioned that there has been a $500,000 private grant that has been made available to put a cap on the existing runway. Interestingly enough, in the letter that the FAA used as to their logic about why they were dropping, and our consultant doesn't think it's valid at all, but they said, in order to be FAA compliant, you need to make the runway 400 feet shorter, and then you'll no longer be FAA compliant. So it's kind of a circular, and so that was kind of their logic that they put into that. So anyway, there's a grant going forward to cap the existing runway. I do think, again, just like we talk about sewer, do we need to look at how we're going to be treating sewer 20 years from now and building a plan for that? We also need to revisit the conversation that was 20 years ago about is there another place to put an airport for this area. Now, when that happened 20 years ago, there was a lot of public sentiment that says, I'm fine with everything so long as it's not in my backyard, a theme we've heard before. And so the problem is, where can we put it that they can put in a 6,000-foot runway that the neighbors aren't going to say, not in my backyard? And then at the same time, we've still got people here next to this runway saying, can you move the runway someplace else? Because right now it's in my backyard. And so that's part of the discussion. I've seen and observed airports moved historically. They're a 20-year process when you do that. So again, it's another one of those, how do we look at it in the long, how do we look at it and how do we move forward? So that's another one of those long-term conversations to have. But from a council perspective, we will have a couple of, actually 3 action items. One, accepting the master plan. When we get to the land use and planning part of the discussion, I would be very curious if council's objective is move forth as quickly as possible and do that, or do we want to have a couple of additional public hearings on it? There isn't a right or wrong answer. I suspect you'll hear from your constituencies as we announce this and tell us what it is, what we need to do. I already have input from one council member that she thinks that this shouldn't come up until next year. But anyway, so we've got the accepting the master plan. We've got authorizing the MOU that we'll need to do. And then the third thing is, the map that's currently in place is still the map that is in place from the 70s for the airport. It is this council's intent that map be greatly reduced from what it is right now. The biggest, most significant thing is that there's land west of the airport where all the camping happens for the rodeo, the rally, et cetera. This body passed an ordinance of a revised map. However, neither of the other 2 parties involved have signed off on that yet, which means that the old map is still in place. I have an updated proposal for a map that we've alluded to before. Basically, the high level is it follows the road on the west side and includes easements, recorded easements specifically, not only for all of the existing trails that are there, but also for our road and utilities that are there. And so our current map doesn't do that really well. And in exchange, we lop off and go a straight line on the west side, which includes a little diagonal piece down by the rodeo grounds that currently is one of those diagonal cross runways. So I don't think it's, from a pilot's perspective, I don't think it's terribly practical because you land and then there's a cross runway, so it's a jump built in the middle of the runway is not generally a good thing.
Sounds fun.
So I would like to propose that as we get into that, that we consider passing another revised map. And of course, what we would do is we would actually, I can offer, but my reading and understanding at this point is that the other two entities are on board on signing into that with the other. So we can go with the existing. If we were going into the FAA funding program, the timing of that would be critical, whereas they have basically said, no, it's not critical, but we still need to get it done so that we're not using that 1973 map that is ceding more control over more land than what we intend to do. Councilmember Ronnie.
I just had a quick question. I know that when we had talked about doing that, we were talking about creating like Rodeo Park over there. Just speaking for future, 20 years down the road, if we do move the airport, because it's very hard to take land out of a park once it's in a park.
So the court case, as I've been doing some homework there, so this also came up in the situation of the observatory, which is in a dedicated park. Part of what happens, and those court cases revolved around if the land was given to the city for a public use, if that was like, it was given and that was the history, then before it can be used for anything else, like going in and building houses and condos or whatever, then it has to go to the public for a vote and be 50% plus one.
Okay, well, they gave that whole land up there for public use
They
back in 1940
they actually sold it.
for $1.
$10. No,
It was $10.
was it, I was just,
$10.
but if, so we can have the attorney look at that and state, but the portion of dedicating it as a park or not a park doesn't complicate it.
Okay,
It's the part of the paper trail that came in.
okay.
So for those who are curious, Van Dyke Pike Park was, purchased from, an estate sale. And the city was just the highest bidder on that. So that's how Van Dyke Park came into being. So, yeah. That's some of that other just kind of
Yeah, no, I just,
continually developing
anytime
information.
we decide to dedicate something as a public park, I just, it's
I,
supposed to be like that forever.
yeah, we want to look at it and make sure that we're not
Exactly.
painting ourselves into a corner beyond that. And that's another related, I didn't mention that as an action, but that's a secondary action that we want to look at, is do we want to set aside that park? Do we want to protect both the rodeo and the airport for the foreseeable future while it's there? Do we want to go ahead and protect that? Any other questions on the airport? I know that's always a lively topic. All right, planning board meeting, which was scheduled for tomorrow, is going to be canceled and will resume on its regularly scheduled second Wednesday. Basically, what happened is the agenda update came out over the weekend, and Monday was a holiday, so by the time those who receive and get it posted to the public got to it, we were outside of that 48-hour window required for public notice in advance. So in consulting with the planning board and looking about postponing it and availability, the determination was made based on workload that we'll just resume in December. So no planning board meeting tomorrow night. Brewery Hill, there's going to be a public meeting. It is tentatively set for December 16th. That's a Monday at 5:30 at the Senior Center. This is basically for the grant that we are putting into for the state for funding, and one of the things we have to do is we have to have a properly noticed meeting. So that's why it's out a couple of weeks, as we didn't have the time and place finalized to make this week's paper. And so it'll be Monday, December 16th, I believe. And I'm going to say tentative because as of noon today, that was still working for everybody, but we haven't finalized the arrangement. But we'll have the opportunity to announce that a couple times, plus it'll be in the paper. There will be a public notice, and it basically says that if people, they can attend in person. That's why we're doing it at the Senior Center. I have a hunch this will fill this room a little over, even though that time of year, and we were trying, just going for earlier. So it was like sometime that week of, and the general feeling is earlier in the week is better as Christmas is getting close.
And is that about the trail?
That is about the trail. It's a public hearing. They're gonna present their options. So my understanding is they're gonna have 2 or 3 different options available, like north side, south side, half and half. Here's what we're looking at, and get public feedback. That's a requirement as we put into the state. They wanted to have a public hearing so that we understand the public sentiment. They don't want to give us money if the community doesn't want a trail down Brewery Hill.
Do you need a quorum of council there?
It is not a council meeting, so we don't need a council. However, it is also publicly noticed, so there is not a problem with council going. By way of information, just for clarity, we have reached out and relied very heavily on Beartooth Trails to help us in this process. It's one of those things that we've delegated. However, the application is still the city going in. It is gonna be the city who makes the application, who does it. So we are the active part, but we will continue to use Beartooth Trails to help. And so that's one of the things we're trying to make clear in the language of the public notice. You know, if you've got questions, Nick Gaddy, who's their administrative, their executive, is available to help with those questions. But if there's comments and stuff, if you'd have, please, folks, send them in to Lonnie, and that'll be in the public hearing notice as well. So they can take comments in person, or they can take comments in advance if people are disappearing and not gonna be around that week because we're getting closer to the holidays. But our goal is to have it all ready to submit, the first of the year, so we wanna get it done before then. I wanna say our ultimate deadline is like February, and then they'll tell us, yes, you get money, or no, you don't. But, all signs have pointed to that we're likely to get that money. Any questions on Brewery Hill? All right, the last thing I wanted to talk about, and you also had an email, it was part of the packet this time. There was a duplex that was added down in R3 to the south. Chances are, if you drive down the main road, you probably won't see it, but if you drive down the back alleyway, you will definitely see it. This was something that was approved by our previous planner in the last administration, and as we looked at it, and when I say we, I looked at it, we had Brian look at it, we had our planner look at our zoning and our regulations. The question that basically came into play here, first off, a duplex is allowed in R3. An ADU is allowed. Our current zoning regulations say that if there's more than 2 units on the lot, it still has to have a conditional use. But the state update says you don't get to question that anymore. So we have a follow-up conversation on whether we still need to do that or if the state has eliminated that. The second part is when they put in their building permits, their proposition was, because our ADU in our zoning is regulated as a single dwelling structure, or single dwelling unit under X number of feet. And so 2 tiny homes stacked on top of each other is not a single unit. So the question is when they presented it was, is there anything that says the primary structure has to be the one that's been there on the property the longest? Or can this be our primary structure, and the existing home, because it's small enough and meets all the ADU requirements, is now an ADU? And based on that conditions and review of several people, the answer was yep, and so it was approved and it went in. We have since gone through and looked at it and found a little line that we didn't notice before that specifically calls out that the ADU will be smaller than the primary dwelling, meaning we probably should not have approved this particular unit. But it's done, it's there. It certainly exists in the future, but that additional caveat will be taken into account as well. But like I said, the 4 people that had reviewed that didn't catch that. So if you get questions or comments on that, like I said, there's a letter in the packet kind of explaining all of that going through. I just wanted to leave the opportunity for questions if there were.
The 3 dwelling units on one lot there then?
There is, which is allowed in R3,
Okay.
and we have several places in town where that exists in R3. The thing that has traditionally been done prior to that is that if it's more than 2, it would have had a conditional use hearing in front of the council.
Or.
I'm sorry, in front of the planning board.
So I thought if the state regulations kicked in if you were over a certain population.
Some of the regulations kick in if you're over 5,000, some of them apply to everybody.
Okay.
So, that is all being reviewed,
Okay.
so. We did the best we could with what we got, and we found a spot we could do a little bit better in the future. But the reception, I believe, has been generally positive, but I also anticipate that there's a little bit of concern about how do I make sure my neighbors don't do that, or what the process is gonna go through if my neighbors do that, so.
Well,
I think it's a worthy conversation. I believe, wow, I went over my half hour, I apologize. That's all the updates, unless there's any other updates that I didn't think of that council would like updates on. Just a reminder, I will not be at the next meeting. Your illustrious, council president will be running that meeting.
okay.
All right. Hearing none, we will take this lovely moment to pause for public comment. And this is specific, well, this is public comment on the agenda, but it can also be on stuff from mayor's comments, because mayor's comments is on the agenda. If you're interested, in speaking, if you would stand and introduce yourself, direct your comments to the chair, please, that's me. State for the record, your name and where you live. Our rules actually say an address, but general vicinity is totally acceptable. And you'll have 3 minutes, to address. Again, this is not a discussion, this is your council opportunity to be heard, by the council. And so we'll start with those in the room. Go ahead.
Jen Cap, right over there.
Very good. General.
Yeah, General.
General, right over there.
And, wearing my AAA Real Large Rentals hat. Thank you. I attended the work session on STRs and the good neighbor policy and kind of honing in on that, ordinance. And I just really appreciate the attention to detail and the effort that's going in. So saying thank you, and then I'll be back because I have something that's not on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Any other, anybody else who'd like to speak in chamber?
Hi, Mary Hogan, 219 South Hagen. I am really close to this building that was built on the alley. It is huge. It is monstrous. And so we have, because you're talking about South Hagen, right, the 200 block?
It's,
Oh, it's this one. Oh, I apologize. We have a really big building going up behind us. I thought it was that one. I apologize.
that's all right.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Would you still like to speak?
Yeah, you know what? We talked about having an architectural committee. These old neighborhoods that are now having large buildings built on them that really aren't part of the history. Just make it less historical.
All right,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you. And just so to make sure I've captured it, properly, basically it's an input of, hey, have we considered having an architectural committee for the city in general as part of our zoning?
See, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from within the chamber? If not, let's go to online. If you're online and would like to comment, if you could please turn on your camera, or barring that option, at least turn on your mute so we know you're interested. I'm not seeing anybody, so going twice. And to make it official 3 times. Thank you very much. All right, coming back to the table. Action items. Lonnie, would you remind me, I don't think we have a resolution, it's just the motion to, pardon?
It's a motion.
Yeah, so there's not a resolution, but I will entertain a motion to cancel the December 24th city council meeting. This is a tradition that has, normally been done, for the second, which always falls right on about Christmas. I'll entertain such a motion.
I move to cancel the December 24th, 2024 city council meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion from Councilmember Ronning and a very quick and enthusiastic second from Councilmember Tukman. I guess I already started with a little bit of the discussion, which I probably should have waited until we had the motion. So just traditional, any other comments that anybody would like to add?
That's when my family celebrates Christmas.
All right.
I could bring some Ludafisk.
No, we're good. Thanks.
I will be in Munich.
No tilapia in the microwave. All right, roll call vote, please.
Daniel? Yes. Keith?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronnie? Yes. Tupin?
Yes.
All right, I will entertain a motion for resolution number 3670.
I move to approve budget, resolution number 3670, budget amendment resolution amending appropriations and reserves for various funds for fiscal year 2024.
I will second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Ronning, a second from Councilmember Daniels. Lonnie, would you like to take a moment and explain the specifics of this, please,
Sure.
with your outside voice?
Yes. So all this, resolution is doing is, accounting for, because both of these are pass-through, payments kind of, so like the CDBG fund, that was for the grants that we received and stuff, and on the expenditure side, we just didn't account for that money coming in, but we still spent it, so the money came in, so it's balanced out with the funds on the revenue side. Same with stormwater, we just didn't account for the loan and stuff for all of that. So it's a balance between the revenue, we received the revenue, we just didn't include it on the expenditure side, so.
And it's a fairly normal process, so like if we get a grant for the Brewery Hill, we didn't know in advance we were getting that.
Yeah, it's just.
The pavement, so does this amount for the stormwater, this doesn't include the flood for the FEMA pavement that we just did?
No.
That'll be another sort of thing that the numbers have to wait, and so the way you make them balance is you do them after the fact. But they all have to be accounted for.
Correct.
All right, any other questions for Lonnie from the table?
No.
There was a lot of them. Okay.
All right,
Good insight, or outside.
hearing none, let's get a roll call, please.
Daniel? Steve?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Tupin?
Yes.
All right, I will entertain a motion for resolution number 3671, please.
I move to approve resolution number 3671, a resolution of the City of Red Lodge to authorize the city to hire an independent investigator for human resource matters.
Well, second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Ronning and a second from Councilmember Daniels. And with that, let me introduce, because this is something that you have not seen on the agenda previously. So this is kind of a time-sensitive issue. So what happens is anytime there is a complaint filed, per our union agreements, if there's ever an employee situation, there's a complaint filed, there needs to be an investigation that takes place. We are a small town, a small organization, and so we have managers, everybody's in the same office and whatnot. The short version is, MMIA's recommendation is that we hire an outside third-party counsel. That absolutely makes sense to me. But then the mechanism is that city council needs to approve that as well.
So, question on this one.
Yep.
Wait, have we made the motion yet before we get into discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
The motion was made by Councilmember Ronning and
Yep.
Daniels.
Okay, perfect. I was just like, making sure, getting lost in that one. But with this, has there been, a reason to feel that we need to have this in the near future? Is this gonna be someone that we are paying on a regular basis at a payroll? Or is this something that we pay as needed?
So it is an as-needed expense.
Okay.
We do have, received the likely vendor, for lack of a better term. So I do have those numbers, so it's basically on an as-needed basis. And the answer, without going into any particular detail, because it's an HR matter, is yes, we have an immediate need.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
Any other questions?
So many questions.
All right,
Oh, what's the dollar amount?
give me 2 seconds and I will tell you, I can, so it is an hourly,
Oh.
hold on.
Please come with Coleman.
Give me just a second and I just don't have it pulled up, but I anticipated the question, so I asked the question.
I appreciate this.
So, they have 3 different billing rates depending on who's involved. They have a $275 for the legal counsel, $225 for associates, and $145 an hour for the paralegal that's involved. And the answer is as little of hours as necessary. That's
Yeah.
hopeful.
Mhm.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, take the roll call, please.
Daniel?
Yes.
Keys?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Tupin?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And just like that, we're back on schedule again, and even ahead of schedule. All right. So now let us move to the council portion of the agenda. Let us start with public health and safety.
Okay, so, public health and safety, we, in your packet was a draft memo of understanding between the City of Red Lodge and Beartooth Humane Alliance. Prior to this, we have had these MOUs with, county has one with the vet, so that if a dog is found, it can be boarded at a vet. This isn't that, this isn't the memo of understanding with Beartooth Humane Alliance, which is basically, if you've read this, enlisting their services in helping to find owners. And if an owner can't be found, then, what they will do is, get back to Nate, sorry. They will, place it in foster care for the city. We will have MOUs coming up also with, hopefully 2 of the, veterinarians here in town that will be able to, board lost pets for us if we cannot find the owner. And they will be boarded, as this says, up to 72 hours, and then Beartooth Humane Alliance will place them in foster care. We will, at our next meeting, this is just up for discussion tonight, we will have a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign this, the memo of understanding with Beartooth Humane Alliance, and then hopefully we'll also have the draft MOUs for the 2 veterinary, for discussion. And then hopefully we'll get these done. We're also, working on the actual, ordinance and changing it from just a dog ordinance to a pet ordinance. So that we can also include cats in, so we can kind of address, hoarding of animals as well as, feral cat colonies, that type of thing, that are not currently covered under any specific ordinance except public health and safety nuisance type of thing.
So it's worth noting in the MOU that you have in front of you, so the last time, that we had this MOU or something very similar to it in place was under Mayor Larson. Some of the things that were different, interestingly enough, that MOU was between it was written so it was between the police department and Beartooth Humane, as opposed, it said City of Red Lodge, but in the language it referred to the police department. So while the police department is our arm that will be addressing it, the new MOU is specifically with the city. And this basically just brings us on par with what the county offers. Dogs are a public health and safety issue, validly. The second part, which Council Member Ronning mentioned, is something that turns out has existed in the past, but not on paper, and including with the county where it's in place. It is a budgetary thing. They have budgeted $2,000 a year. Some years they've been over, some years they've been under. But basically if somebody has a dog or there's an animal that's identified, the general process is it's preferred, and what dispatch advises them to do is to take it to one of the vets. The vets will take it into their control because we have an arrangement with them that says you'll be made whole after 3 days. The Beartooth Humane basically caps that at not to exceed 3 days. And so there's efforts, social media, et cetera, to still find the animal. But there is the potential as we put the vets in, as we seek to get on parity with the council or with the county, that we may spend some dollars for boarding of animals in that 3 days that's there.
And it would only be, the city coming up with that money if the owner is not found. If the owner's found, the owner will be responsible to
Yeah,
pay
that's,
the boarding
they,
school
it's
to
basically
get
like
the-
getting your dog out of impound.
Yeah,
And that was actually what I started to say when we go here is, as we're talking about changing the pet ordinance, this program is only referring to dogs. I don't think that
they won't pay
that
that.
cats, yeah, there's a lot of issues about cats, and they don't seem to represent quite the, if we have a cat that's the public health safety, it's generally Fish and Game we call, not.
Have we ever paid, I've never signed a warrant for any of those. I've never seen a bill for that.
We have not, because they've not done it for several years, because the absence of an agreement. The county does, but we don't. So what happens right now is if somebody has a lost dog and they call dispatch, dispatch will say, take the dog out to the county, hang up the phone and call us back.
Okay, no.
Because they have an
Basically,
agreement
they
with the
say
county
that
to do it.
The city has nothing, so.
Yeah, okay.
And so they
Yeah,
that's why
basically just say, you're in the city, don't do it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have gotten a lot of feedback from, you know, from people, from citizens who say, you know, I have this dog and no one will come get it. And I'm worried it's gonna get hit, or it's just, you know, wandering around. And so they'd like the city to step in at that point and take it.
And the city's role, aside from the financial, will be that at request of the vets, if we send an officer down there, basically like a peacekeeping officer, what they don't want to do is they don't want to be in a position where they say, here's your dog, you owe us $300 because we've been doing it. Your dog didn't have any tags, so we gave it the shots that are required for boarding. And as soon as you write us a check, you can have your dog back. We'll also send an officer down basically as a peacekeeping officer so that they're not involved in that process.
And maybe, you know, the hope is that if that happens a couple of times, maybe, you know, they'll make sure their dog doesn't get out again.
Hopefully just one.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
I
as
know
soon as
some of them are
they,
escape artists, but you
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
just, there are some that are, seem to be out.
and they still, you know, when they call, and then our current police do say frequently, if you see a dog walking down the road, there's a very good possibility he's going home.
Mhm.
He's either going away from home or he's going home, so,
Yeah.
so it's not, this isn't the end all be all, but it's basically a gap we've identified. If there's an issue, we do have separate vehicles that are necessary if we need to have police, collect and take a dog down there, but like a catch pole and all that sort of training is not something we have built into our budget, so hopefully we won't have a need for it. If there's a problem that sort of a dog, I think he's probably gonna get tased or something, and then they'll haul him down. Or we'll call Chelsea and she'll come take care of it.
I would never thought you did that.
So is there any additional input on this MOU with Syracuse Humane Alliance, or, will you guys
Otherwise, we'll
be-
see it next week.
Yeah.
That sounds great, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Look for the resolution next week and a vote for action. Not next week, 2 weeks.
Next meeting.
Next week, yes.
Anything else from public health and safety?
Doug, do you have anything else you'd like to
No,
add?
no,
Okay.
we got something we discussed. Quick meeting.
All right, thank you. Let's go to admin and finance, and that was council chair Ronning as well.
Yes, well, I'm gonna turn it over to Chris, because, in your packet is the good neighbor policy, so.
Yeah,
She worked really hard on this, so.
So the short-term rental committee actually developed this last year, or maybe it was the year before, but it was never codified. So next meeting, we will have a resolution to adopt this, on November 26th. So what we did is we updated this, we removed anything subjective. So everything right now is linked to an existing ordinance or a law. And those links are in there so people can click on them and see the actual law that we're referring to. This document is gonna live online primarily, but there's also gonna be printed copies in short-term rental homes. And, let's see, so that QR code at the very bottom, that's just a made-up code right now because we don't have a page where this lives yet, but that will link to an online version of this, so people will be able to like click on all of the.
So if they have a hard copy, they can go here and then click on the
Yep,
links, and that'll
yep,
say it right
yep.
there in that. Very nice.
Exactly. And then one thing that we added this morning, like under where it says phone number, we added space for, the maximum occupancy for this property is blank. So the short-term rental manager can write that in.
Okay,
So, one thing I wanted to point out too is that, the solid waste, that seems to be a big problem with short-term rentals, and so I have linked, and this could change as well, but I have linked to, the bear-proof container, video that's on the city website, and I understand that that's gonna change.
We are working on that
This
to
will be
make sure
updated.
that it matches, well, that's the advantage of having to be in a live document
Right.
too. It's working it so that it has the version of garbage cans that we actually have.
Right, right now there's one video, but I think you said there's gonna be another one.
Yeah.
So I just linked it to the solid waste page overall, so, yeah, anybody have any questions on this?
I have a comment, when you talk about putting maximum occupancy on here, I understand the value in having that, but my recollection from council was that this should only be things that are specific city resolutions and city ordinances.
Which that is
And-
within our,
And
I'm gonna let you answer this.
No, so, and my concern was that the maximum occupancy, when we reached out on the short-term rental, is fire does not set, EMS does not set.
But the
They
property manager
specifically said,
Or owner.
saying,
does. The owner,
yeah,
yeah, the property owner does,
the owners do.
which is why
which
they're
is
going
in
to
the
be.
ordinance.
It says that they set the maximum occupancy.
And that,
And so they're gonna put that on there.
Yep, so,
Okay.
because that's one thing that's required when you do a registration, is you have to provide what the maximum occupancy of that home is. So that's already in our in our registrations and applications. And we also have that in ordinance 907, that it's required that, and this is all stuff that's also happening right now, because all of these things are working together and
Yeah.
getting cleaned up. So in ordinance 907, it directly refers to owner or manager will be setting the maximum occupancy, and that maximum occupancy must be upheld as well as posted in the property.
Thank you. That's the answer I was looking for.
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
Chelsea was kind enough to sit in on our meeting today and provided a lot of input for 907 and 963, which we are updating.
Under
And-
that maximum occupancy, well, that's a, that, under that MO, can we have a link that points to that too, or a reference that says 907 or whatever it is, just include that? Since everything else, we say, it's
Yeah.
this rule, this rule, this
Yeah.
rule, we should do that there.
Sure.
Yes,
Do you have space?
It can be a very small font.
yeah, I do, I've got space, link to 907.
So,
So anyway, you'll be seeing more of that because we got a lot done today.
we did, yeah. So at our next meeting, we will have a resolution to adopt the good neighbor policy, as required by our current ordinance. That we never did adopt it last year, so this will be
So-
adopted. And then we will also, I don't know, do you think we'll be ready?
I think we're ready for discussion
Okay.
next week. I sent you guys today all the updated versions
For 907 and.
for 907, 963, and also zoning. So,
Okay.
So just to understand for note keeping, there will be a resolution in action to adopt the good neighbor policy, which will have a couple of edits from what we're seeing this week.
Yeah.
And during the other council business discussion, there will be the copies and suggested changes to all of the related ordinances.
And,
That'll
and
be for discussion.
basically what we're doing is the ordinance that for short-term rentals, we're just all it's going to really address is the limit or the cap, whatever you want to call it. The limit is what we're calling it.
We've all agreed on limit.
And then,
No threshold.
business registration is going to pick up a lot of,
yeah, so specifically, yeah, the ordinance 963 will detail the limit, how that's processed, any exemptions, et cetera. 907, which is our business registration ordinance, will detail any types of registrations, so, you know, professionally managed, owner-operated, those types of pieces. It will also go through regulations. It'll also go through all of your registration procedure, renewals, all of the actual processing of getting the business registration, which is really where that should live. And then zoning, we will make the recommendation that a lot of that regulation lives within business registration, because that's where that's actually being regulated. and that it really more determines use of property and space.
So take the regulations out of zoning, put it in business registration.
Okay. I have a question,
Okay?
and and this is my dad's question, otherwise it's gonna sound like, you know, Uncle Olaf, but this is my dad's question. If a dog has 4 legs and you call his tail a leg, how many legs does he have?
5 legs.
No, he has 4 legs. It doesn't matter what you call it, it's a tail. So I go back to, we're gonna call it a limit versus a cap.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
Yeah, it's a limit,
It's
it's the
a
same as
tail.
a cap, yeah, again, as I say, it's the same as a cap. Limit is a cap is a limit,
So,
like,
so we're choosing a word that we hope is less offensive and softer, but it's still a cap.
Kind of like the
More direct than threshold.
yeah, yep.
Okay.
So that was,
And that is council's
Exactly what the-
prerogative, so
it
I'm
was-
just asking the question.
sometimes we make compromises, and that's what we did.
And honestly, what we're trying to do is clean it up and codify what was passed last year. And by cleaning it up, we're taking things out of places where it shouldn't have been and putting it where it should be.
Okay.
And we're taking out things that shouldn't have been there in the first place because it's not actually something that exists.
Or can't be enforced.
Correct.
Who's gonna be the designated Dave and ask the Dave questions when you guys are having discussion on this next week?
We're gonna have a 10-minute meeting.
Okay. You might need this later. Well
Honestly,
played.
Dave, aren't you just thrilled that you don't have to be here for the short-term conversation?
I enjoy all of these meetings.
And I will also, at the next meeting, I will get an update from Danae of where we're at current limit on everything. So, my understanding is that we were right around 10%. So, you know, the changes we're suggesting are not to make more room because we have lots of room left to grow.
Yeah.
It's just, we want to clean it up, we want to make it streamlined, we want
We want to make it very clear for people that are applying, also as well as make it very clear for the city clerks to actually know how to process these questions and how people within our community can answer these questions.
And I like going to one spot, you know, the
Yep.
municipal code to find it, rather than, and also look in this index
Yeah.
and that paper and this stack of wad up. Yeah,
Exactly.
much appreciated. Anything else?
I think that, we did have a presentation from CPACE, and, they will like to talk to all of council at our next meeting. I did ask them to limit it to a 10-minute, presentation, because it was very in-depth, it was very informative, so.
Thorough.
But
It was really good. It
good,
was very
yeah.
thorough.
So, we will have that as a discussion next time, with a copy of the resolution, to adopt the program, but, it's mainly gonna be information and discussion at our next meeting.
Do you anticipate that would be under the council business portion of the agenda, or mayor's comments portion, or council president's portion of the agenda?
Should be under our admin
That,
committee.
yeah, I think it should be
Yeah.
under council business, because it's just a discussion at this point.
All right. Thank you. It's very nice to kind of have the next meeting all planned out in advance as we get done with these, so thank you for your help on those. All right, anything else any questions for the admin committee from other members not party and privy to that? All right. Land use and planning, I'll look to, Committee Chair Tupin for that.
So land use and planning was a fairly light meeting today. Most everything was actually just Dave giving us the same update that he gave us in mayor's reports. So that made my job really easy this evening. Specifically, we have been leaving space to have the conversations for the airport interlocal agreement. And now for next week, we'll also include the MOU and master plan on there as well to review and discuss. Other discussions that we've had on our agenda was, we did speak a little bit about RV parks within city limits. And the reason that conversation has started is specifically, when we did the camping ordinance, there were people wondering, well, where do we have folks that need to stay, like have a place to sleep if they're coming through town and don't necessarily want to drive out into the mountains to do it? So providing a private opportunity is kind of what we're trying to explore a little bit. If we were to discuss this, it would end up essentially providing some direction to the planning committee or the planning board, and then they could continue to develop on that. Likely, we're gonna table this conversation until we have our master plan and downtown plan and growth policy completed. So, that's really where we're at now. We've also added a few pieces on some of these annexation options to do a little bit more exploration on those, to make sure that we are ready and educated for when they come to the table.
Right. I'll just like to add, I did receive, I had a conversation that reached out to me today. You guys all have a copy of that correspondence now today. It'll be in the packet, next week for the public, on the RV park specifically. And like many things that come before us, there are people who have differing opinions. Some people think it's there. I did, put to rest a couple of things that the city was not interested in getting into the RV park business, that actually we'd already made that decision with the camping ordinance, that we didn't want to be in that business. So, just know that there's going to be divergent opinions and inputs, and that's part of the process and why we do this.
And that's why we can have adult conversations with them.
Well, and I do appreciate having that conversation, especially if we are going to be looking at annexation south and north, because we may not have something right down in town that would work. But, you know, when we're looking at,
Just out of town,
Yeah.
it'd be lovely.
we don't know until we
On-
actually, so I don't want
Yep. All right. And you are the governing body of the city, so this is your decision to make. I would like to offer some input on the airport. I will try to get some updated information to you, but given I'm leaving the country, in a week. But what I would like to have you discuss and come back with from a recommendation of that is on the master plan. Do we want to have some additional public hearings on that master plan? Or given that ultimately we're not going to be doing anything with that master plan other than accepting it, do we just want to move forward with it? But I will defer to council's preference on how we handle that. So that'll be a big decision for you to make. And that'll be in your council, and that'll be in your standing committee, and then you guys can talk about it as a full council in the council discussion as well. And whatever you say is what we will do.
Okay, and I'm going to take, sorry, I'm planning for my next agenda.
I can speak to that if you want to keep typing.
Speak to, which
The
one?
next agenda thing, the public.
Oh, sorry, no, I was saying I'm writing next week's land use and planning agenda.
But
So-
she'll talk quietly to herself, so you can go ahead
Yeah,
and
so
talk.
if you want to do, that'd be
Yeah,
perfect.
so we're moving on to Public Works. We, tonight we talked about,
Oh, we switched
Yeah.
full,
Yeah.
all right, on to Public Works.
yeah.
we're moving along.
We had an update from the mayor, who did that in place of the absent and ill public works
Oh, no.
director. And then we reviewed, Red Lodge Municipal Code 614, reserved parking space, handicap parking is what it's called right now. We, changed handicap to accessible to be more in line with the current prevailing terminology. And then we worked on creating an ordinance to change that, municipal code. And so, you ready to take it over?
Sure, yeah, I mean, you're doing great, you just keep it up. You're
Well,
awesome.
some of the, I just don't have it up right now, so some of the things that we changed, there was the whereases. There
By
was
that, I mean, we just added
something in
where-
place that really wasn't, there was a fee mentioned, there was an application mentioned, and there was an opportunity for people to just, create their own private parking spaces. And it really wasn't the intent, I think, we all think of that municipal code. And so we cleaned it up and just limited it to in front of government buildings and, applying for, private citizens to have that in front of their houses, you know, a spot if they need accessibility. So, you will see that coming at you next week. Do you want to add some more, Chelsea?
So that will be in the council discussion then?
Yes, we would
so
like
you'll have
that to
paperwork?
be, yep, we will have that, we
Okay.
pretty much were able to get that wrapped up today. So we have an ordinance that we have sent already to Lonnie Dennison and both Jody and the mayor for review and get that under, get that reviewed by Dennison, so we can have that up for discussion next week, and then hopefully up for a vote.
It's the ordinance that needs to vote,
Exactly, so, yeah.
and public
First
hearing.
hearing will be that second week of December.
And people will talk about how it took us 2 years to get it done.
Oh, no, we did this so quickly,
Uh,
it was efficient.
And then,
Did it
I just
address?
wanted to point out
Okay.
too, that it's in your packet too, what the existing one is, and
Mhm.
what the new one, the proposed new one is.
Yep.
And so, the proposed new one, we did change the word handicapped to accessible.
But that was the only significant change from today?
Oh, plus whereas.
There's,
quite a
well,
few.
no, this is just the actual code part of it.
Oh,
But, yeah, then we wrote the resolution, or the
ordinance.
sorry.
Yep. So, yeah, do you want me to take over now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you guys, as you guys were doing that, did you discuss any further the possibilities? One of the ideas that was thrown out earlier was like, if we wanted to have occasional 15-minute spots, parking
No.
spots along Broadway, did that come and go and say
We
no?
talked about it.
We
like,
discussed,
long ago.
yeah, we talked about it, but I think end of the day, it was one of those things that we did not want to see.
Take away spots.
Exactly, we don't want to take away spaces.
There's already,
That's a whereas.
And
yeah,
especially with this ordinance as it's currently, or this code as it's currently written, it really does need to get addressed sooner than later. So if that's something that the council would like to do further down the road and maybe identify, we can certainly add that, but in the
Yeah.
meantime, we're gonna fix this problem. So that way it's addressed and taken care of, and we're not gonna get in the weeds too much.
No, we don't wanna,
Yeah.
deal with one thing first.
Yep.
the thing is that, most of the deliveries are supposed to take place in the alley anyway, and Broadway businesses have access to the alley.
Yes.
Correct.
So, I think, that, and it's expected,
And again, we think about
Do
15-minute
we
drop
say
offs
that in our,
or,
do we say that in our ordinance anywhere, that
Deliveries.
deliveries are supposed to be?
Does it need to be put in it?
well, you
I
can't,
don't
you
know.
can't park on Broadway. And, when there's cars parked, or you can't double park on Broadway with a big semi and unload Cisco, or unload Shamrock. All the deliveries are, and FedEx and UPS all deliver through the alley. So I don't know that.
Because
we
it's more
necessarily-
convenient for them to do it, basically.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's because there's always cars parked in the parking area, so there's nowhere for them to park.
yeah, that's
I-
the only
And
place
it's
that actually
just a
makes
lot
sense.
of double park, so.
To Councilmember Tupin's place, I think as the downtown master plan
Mhm.
specifically gets done, that we may want to come and revisit some of that, do we want to say there's a maximum vehicle length of what's allowed to park on Broadway? Do we, there may be there was discussions about, do we turn 3 or 4 of the laterals into alternating, I guess 4 would be the logical answer, into alternating one-way parkings that create some, one-way streets with angled parking to increase parking. So there's all sorts of interesting
Yeah.
conversations that come up through that process.
Yeah, it'd be a 2025 thing.
Again, right now, I think specifically,
Yeah.
this is, let's fix the ordinance and the code that's currently in place.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we have the opportunity to expand on that in the future if we so choose. And
We already-
especially
Yeah.
when we start to get feedback from the master plan, downtown
Right.
plan, et cetera.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that'll be for discussion next weekend and plan first reading in the first December meeting.
Correct.
Correct.
Otherwise, Public Works had some conversations around Parks Board starting to work on priorities and getting budgets put together, which is really exciting. And should be some really cool conversations in the next few months. We got to see a sneak peek of the recycling review, and I am looking forward to that being presented. Do you want that next week at council? So that will be a
We're gonna have a lot of meetings, guys.
discussion for next week at council, unless you'd rather be here for it.
You can wait, you can wait.
The system is designed to work even, and I'm just.
We're having like one of our best
I'm
meetings
just
later.
PowerPoint.
Yeah.
You told me it ahead of time if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a recording, I can sit in and watch on it.
Okay, so anyway,
If you guys would like to do it next time, do it next time.
We'll do it next time.
we'll do it next time.
No use talking trash at Christmas.
Oh. That's a good, that's a good one, I like that. All right, anyway, that was Public Works today.
Anything else?
Okay.
Cool.
Look at that.
All right, All right, I already mentioned the correspondence that will be added to the packet. Is there any other correspondence that folks have?
I have one,
Yep,
Emailed it, right?
from Jen Cap, who happens to be here tonight, and, I just forwarded it all to you. She is not pleased with the dogs next door that bark continuously,
Oh.
and, anyway, she's wondering if there's anything that we can do as a council to help. She's frustrated, so,
okay.
I am hoping that the Public Safety Committee can address that.
The ordinance in place does address that. If it's 20 minutes of incessant barking, they can be, you can
Yeah.
call.
There's a time issue similar to what we have with parking, so it's one of those things that they are welcome to call dispatch. And I'm assuming she's eavesdropping, but I'm gonna talk to your point. They are welcome to call dispatch. What'll happen is dispatch will prioritize that among the meth dealers, domestic violence,
No.
child porn cases, and deal with it
So
as their
we don't
schedule
have
allows.
those all the time. Now,
Those
but it's
are all
also-
things that our police force is dealing with. So they will prioritize it within there, but if they go and they see it going on, they do have citations that
Well,
they can write.
You guys hear it, it's right there.
Yeah.
So, it's,
So,
it's incessant.
and
Yeah.
it's also, during quiet hours, it doesn't need 20 minutes of
Yeah.
incessant barking.
If it's during quiet hours, then they can do it. And
4 AM in the morning.
I mean,
let their
is
dog
there
out.
any way that we can bear witness for the police department and say like, because I mean, I can tell you right now that we hear those dogs barking through council meetings, like, again, it's pretty apparent.
we can
And it's literally
relay.
across the street, it wouldn't take much of their day.
We do have the correspondence and we can relay it on so that law enforcement is aware of it. Because like I said, part of it is we have to be aware of it. We will relay it on so that they are aware of it.
And Lonnie, I asked you to include it next week, next meeting packet, please. Thank you.
All right. Any other correspondence? All right. What we will do at this time is we'll go ahead and open the floor back up for, public comment. This is on public comment on anything within, council's jurisdiction. Again, just a reminder to direct your comments to the chair. And that, remember, this is not a discussion or debate at this point, but this is your opportunity to speak and be heard by the council. And with that, we'll go ahead and open the public comment.
I don't know if this is on the agenda now officially or not, but Jen Cap, right there.
Over by the barking dogs?
Yeah, so just to give you a little history, I believe in neighborly, finding solutions with my neighbors.
Chocolate cookie diplomacy.
So I have been in contact with my neighbors. I have one neighbor that we work together pretty good. Dog barks a lot, but I think we have a future at working it out. I have dogs. I love dogs. I have another neighbor, the dog is a barker, but the dog also lives a life that exists in the house. And when it's in the house, it's quiet, which I appreciate. When it's outside the home, it's literally on a chain. And its existence is, it runs to the end of the chain, then it runs to the end of the chain, because that's its behavior when it's outside and riled up. So, the barking is, we've lived with it for quite a while, so I reached out to my council reps to say, and I appreciate your comments, Dave, but I understand the police department has other things to work on. I do. However, living next to incessantly barking dogs, it impacts my quality of life. So, I'm not asking the cops to come. I mean, I'm just asking for a discussion on, and the council address through public health and safety. It's not just those dogs. We walk the alleys with our dogs. We see dogs all the time that bark, 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 bark. And some of them are on lines, some of them are on chains, some of them are on yards. But it is not just us, it's not just one dog. I have neighbors that feel the same as me, And I think I would just like to see it be addressed with public health and safety. Not only from the barking is the issue, but also the quality of the dog's life. Because with the one neighbor, what I finally did was I got a hold of landlord, I got a hold of Lisi, who is an employer, and I said, I'm gonna report this dog's quality of life. The owner needs to surrender the dog. That was my personal opinion, because when approached, the answer was, I work all the time, what do you expect me to do? Then don't have a dog. That's my answer. So, it's not just the barking, it's what can we do for animals that we feel are not being handled properly. I mean, so, you know, I don't want to be a jerk of a neighbor, but I'm not willing to just tolerate it any longer. I don't feel that that's my place to just tolerate it because somebody doesn't have time for their dog. Thanks.
And if I may, if my comments came by as dismissive, that was not my intent. I just want to set a fair expectation. We'll relay it on, but understand that there are lots of things
Oh, yeah.
that are going
And
on,
the
so.
20 minutes, do I need a video of 20 minutes consecutive barking? Because what we experience mostly is like, it's probably around 10 or 15 minutes consecutive, or somebody walks across the house with dogs on lead, and the dog goes crazy until that entity has passed out of sight. I don't know that it equates to 20 minutes, but it is significantly disruptive. It is, I'm a little, to know that the ordinance says the dog has to bark for 20 consecutive minutes, it feels a little silly to me.
And they are revisiting that ordinance, so I appreciate your input as they're revisiting those.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate it.
all right, other comments, from the public, and we'll start with those in the chamber. Seeing none in the chamber, I'll go to online. Anybody online who would like to address the council on anything within the council's purview is welcome to do so at this time. Turn on your camera or off your mute. Angie, it looks like you turned your mute off. You have the floor.
Yes, I do have a comment. I'm using a speaker. I'm just wondering if you can hear me.
We can hear you very well. Thank you.
Before I go on to my comment, I actually want to say I agree with Jen's input and comment. I have dogs next to me that bark incessantly sometimes when they're outside, basically. And there is a level of abuse for how a dog is treated. And I don't know if there's any codes or ordinances statewide that describe how dogs should be protected, or pets or animals in general. Because, excuse me?
I said, can you read my notes from where you are? Because you're reading them verbatim.
Okay, well, so I think Jen made a really good point. The comment that I initially wanted to make was excuse me if this has been addressed, I might have missed something, in the traffic code, talking about handicap parking spaces. I would just like to point out along the lines of updating terminology to a more modern languages. A handicapped person is kind of not politically correct anymore, and it should be a person with a disability or a disabled person. And you've got two documents in the supporting document packet where I see a few times parking space for a house that has a handicapped person living in it. In my opinion, that should be changed to a person with a disability living in that house, or a disabled person living there. So,
I'm happy to report that your feedback was relayed on. They did discuss it in the standing committee, and then they reviewed it earlier.
I don't
I think they,
Yeah.
they're going back through, I think they went with, accessible, is one, but that discussion was relayed on, and they are looking into that, so thank you.
Thanks, Angie.
well, accessible is the parking spot, but the person should be described differently, a disabled person,
Would you
not,
be okay if council reaches out to you as they work on that?
that would be fine. Yep,
Thank you, Angie. I'll
you're
call you.
welcome. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and I forgot to say, I live in the city. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Angie, and I apologize for not catching that earlier. All right, anybody else online? All right, going twice? Going 3 times? We'll go ahead and close the public comment. And again, I would like to thank those members of the public who have taken their time out of their schedule to sit in and participate in their local governance process. Very much appreciated, so thank you all. And if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion on item number 13.
Move to adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned.
Have a great vacation.
Thank you.
Oh, here, I'll